Hey everyone, so this video is going to be a quick little video on Bryson DeChambeau's win, the 2019 Ryder Cup, and how to pick the right club. So starting off, we're going to talk about Bryson DeChambeau's win. Now, he played excellent. And I have my phone out here because I kind of wanted to go over some of his stats. So this is cumulative over the entire week, mind you. But the guy hit over 67% of his fairways and almost 82% of his greens, which is, pretty impressive considering how thick that rough was and just how much slope a lot of those greens had. And then on top of that, for the whole week, this is for the 4 rounds, this is adding up his strokes gained stats for each round. Off the tee, he was almost 3 shots strokes gained off the tee, right around 4 shots strokes gained from the fairway, or I'm sorry, on his approaches to the green. Around the greens, he was about 1.5 strokes gained, and on the greens, this is what's really impressive, he was 6.9 strokes gained for the whole week on the greens. So that gives him a strokes gained total of 15.5 for the whole week, which is really, really impressive. That's a really, really good stat. That essentially means that throughout the course of the whole week, he was pretty much better than everyone in virtually every category. That's really, really impressive. Now, he wasn't obviously better than everyone in every category, but he played really, really well. And his game, top to bottom, was very, very impressive and very, very consistent. And it just goes to show you that there is more than one way to skin a cat, and there are lots of ways you can play this game, and there's lots of ways you can play this game incredibly effectively. And I think Bryson's showing that with his unique swing, his unique approach to the game, his unique approach to essentially everything golf. Just goes to show you, there's a lot of different ways you can get this done. And that guy being that consistent in every avenue of golf for that week is pretty impressive. I mean, plus he's got 3 wins the last 2 years. He's got the John Deere, the Memorial, and now the Northern Trust. This guy is definitely on the rise. And barring injury, he'd be a pretty good player. And so moving on, let's talk about the Ryder Cup, right? The 2019 Ryder Cup is right about a month away, okay? So it is right around the corner. It's going to be here before we know it. And the United States has picked their top 8 guys, and there are 4 wild card spots to be chosen as well. Now, everyone's assuming that Tiger and Phil will get picked, and I tend to agree with them. Both of them have been playing some pretty solid golf as of late, and they've played really well the entire year. Phil has played very, very consistent golf for 2 years total. To be where he is in the FedEx Cup race and on the Ryder Cup list with only 1 win is a testament to how well he's played without winning. So that's pretty impressive there. Not to mention that Tiger Woods doesn't have a win this year and didn't play last year, and is also in the mix and has moved up that far. So if you look at the players that have played great this year, I mean, Phil with his win down in Mexico, and Tiger playing as well as he's played without getting a win and being right there in the top 12 guys is pretty impressive. And so, like I said, everyone's assuming that Tiger and Phil will get picked, and I'm fairly confident, probably 99% sure those 2 guys are going to get picked. The other 2 guys are the wild cards. And I think with his play last week, you can definitely check off Bryson DeChambeau as being a guy that's going to get picked. And so lastly, it's kind of come down to probably either Tony Finau or Matt Kuchar at that final spot. And I think it depends on how they play these next couple of weeks. Tony Finau has top 10'd it in 3 of the 4 majors, and he took 2nd place last week. He's played some incredibly consistent golf the last 2 years. Although he hasn't won this year, he is top 10 on, I believe he's top 10 on the FedEx Cup race this year with 0 wins. So that's, by itself, is very, very impressive. If he could get some putts to fall down, he would have had some wins this year. So, but that's kind of the name of the game right now. And if you're Jim Furyk, you're thinking, do I go with a young kid with tons of energy that can hit the ball a mile, that plays well with others, but doesn't make a lot of putts? Or do I go with a veteran like Matt Kuchar, who again plays well with others and makes a ton of putts, but isn't going to set the world on fire with his ball striking every day. So that's kind of where Jim Furyk's going to be at. So I think it's going to come down to those two guys, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And so moving on to the last part of this video, we're going to talk about how to pick the right club, right? So when you're on the golf course playing, you get yardages that aren't, say, a quote-unquote stock yardage. Like we all have a yardage that we like to hit each club. That's like your stock yardage, right? So if I grab my pitching wedge here, and yes, it's a pitching wedge. I'm not lying. It's a pitching wedge. If I grab my pitching wedge here and hit a shot, you know, it's going to go a certain yardage, right? So we'll just hit one and say that's our stock yardage. So we'll pull, but 149 yards, right? So that's about what this wedge goes, about 150. So there's your quote-unquote stock yardage. Now, if you have something, say it's a little bit less of that, say like it's like 143, what do? Do you go with a gap wedge and try and muscle it there, or do you take a little bit off the pitching wedge, or do you maybe go to like a 9-iron and try and just chip on it? Well, if you want to play good golf consistently, you need to be able to change how far the ball flies with each club. So if you want to hit the ball, say 143 yards, you need to do the appropriate things to make that happen. I.e., a simple way to make the golf ball fly a little bit less, i.e. carry a little bit less, is essentially just choke down the club about an inch. Now this choking down about an inch is going to cause the golf ball to go about 3 or 4 yards less. Well, so about 9 yards less, about 140, right? So there you go. So choking down got me 9 yards less on that shot. So if we do this a few more times, we will get an average of how far less choking down 1 inch gives me. So we hit 140. That last one was 143. And then this last one right here will go. Well, I shut the face down on that one, so it pulled left and went a little far. So we'll do one more. I think that was a mystery. That's going to give me 130. But anyways, so what you'll do is you'll hit that shot a couple of times and you'll get an average of about how much, you know, choking down 1 inch will give you. And so that's one simple way to adjust, you know, your distance that you carry the club by going a little bit shorter. Say your stock is 150. Your stock pitching wedge is 150 yards. What if you want to hit it 153? There's a little tier that you want the golf ball to go up to, but you don't want to risk going long with a 9-iron and trying to feather it in there. What do? Very simple way. Move the golf ball back in your stance about 1.5 inches. Okay, so if you play a pitching wedge in the center of your stance, 1.5 inches back is center. So set up to the shot, and everything's going to be about the same. And you pick up your few extra yards, right? No big deal. And again, you'll hit this shot a couple of times to get the average of how far the golf ball flies when you make a certain adjustment. Okay? It's not necessarily a perfect science, but what it does is it gives you a really, really good idea of what to do when you encounter certain situations on the golf course. It's not going to be perfect every time, but if you know that you have to carry 3 extra yards past your stock club to get to the top of the tier, and then you have, say, 7 or 8 more yards to the back of the green, and you know that if you absolutely nuke this pitching wedge, it'll go 160, which is the back edge of that green. You know that that's probably the right club to pick and the right shot to pick. Okay? So we'll hit another one. .157 on that one. So pretty close. Now, you know what you're thinking. Can you play the ball back in your stance and choke down an inch in the club, or ½ inch. What does that do? The answer is sure, you can do that. That's no problem. Again, your golf swing stays the same, virtually stays the same whether you choke down a ½ inch or not. You just want to make sure you move a ½ inch closer to the ball. So we'll choke down ½ inch, ball in the back of our stance, 1.5 inches. And we hit the shot. I don't know if you can tell on the screen, but normally my apex of the wedge is up here. This one dropped to here, and it flew 148 yards. So normally the apex is up here. This one dropped down to here, and it carried 148. So if you want to take a couple yards off the shot, and you want it to come a little bit lower, choking down a ½ inch, moving the ball back in your stance 1.5 inches, gets you the ball flight, the distance carry that you want. And so right now, I've hit shots that go 143, 148, 150, 157, 160, all with this one club. So that's what? So 160 to 143 is what? That's 17 yards. It's a 17-yard dispersion with just making some minor changes in your setup. That's not talking swing length. That's not going, say, full swing to 3/4 to half or whatever. That's not talking any of that. That's not messing with that, which is what you want to avoid when you're playing golf. You don't want to be taking your full swing shots and trying to take a little bit off of it with your golf swing. That throws off your timing. That throws off your rhythm. Okay? I like to tell people to avoid doing things like that. But by making simple changes to their setup, again, you can make some pretty drastic changes with how far the golf ball flies. And that plays a huge role in determining what you're going to pick for the right club, okay? And how to pick the right club, that's what this is all about. So again, got a back pin, don't want to go long, take a shorter club, play it back in your stance a little bit. You got a front pin, and you don't want to swing too hard with the shorter club, go with the longer one, choke down 1 inch, and you'll see how it goes, okay? So that's all I got for you on this video. We'll let you go. Thanks for tuning in. We'll have another one out for you today. We'll see you later.